Yes, good morning, students. Today we are going to start with Windows Phone applications. Basically, we already started this Windows Phone application. Yes, good morning, students. Already we have started with Windows Phone application in last few labs. So today we are going to move ahead with the Windows Phone application. Mainly we are going to work today on a database application. So before we move on to Windows Phone database application, we'll first just quickly revise what is Windows Form and what are the tools that you are going to use while using the database application. So first of all, whenever we are creating a Windows Phone application, right, it's mainly used for a desktop or a software-based application development, where actually you provide a GUI-based some interaction or interface where user can give some input and work on it. So the main use of this Windows Phone application is to provide a GUI and some system that allows a user to work on and to to improve and to work on a particular application. So to start with Windows application, we'll go to File, New Project. In that, on the left hand side panel, we will select Visual C Sharp. On the right hand side, we will select Windows Phone application. If you want, you can rename your application. Likewise, I'm right now renaming that application as Webinar 1. Click on OK. So once it is loaded, you will see one default form that is being displayed on the screen. So this form actually is a workspace where you are going to work and you are going to provide a GUI. Now on the left hand side, if you see, you are being given some options as toolbox. On the right hand side, you can see a solution explorer where my application name is available and some of the supporting files have been created by the software. Now if you see form 1, this form 1 is your design part and it contains two files, designer file and one is rex file. So whenever you are creating or adding some controls to a particular form, automatically the code of that particular control will be pasted here by the system. So we are only going to deal with this form. So starting with the common controls, we start with a button that you know that on clicking this particular button, we are going to execute some particular task. Then we have a checkbox, checklist box, that you can have an index or array of a particular checkbox. You have a combo box, that is a drop-down list, a date time picker for selecting a date inbuilt control provided by Microsoft. Then you have a label to just print something. Then you have a link label, it works as a ahref of your HTML. Then you have a list box that allows you to select multiple values from a particular control. Other than that, we have a text box. A text box is having a property called multi-line. That means allows you to create a multi-line text area of HTML. Also, it is having some password character property that allows you to print a password in your particular GUI. So these are some of the basic controls that we are going to use in a database application. Okay, one instruction is there. If GTU students have joined this session, kindly switch to YouTube link provided in your email or WhatsApp group. If the GTU students have joined this session, kindly join the YouTube link provided in your mail or WhatsApp. This is only for MU. Hiren sir is going to conduct the GTU session, so kindly join there. Right. So moving on to our application level. So what I want to build application is this. Let us say I want to create application, create a GUI where you take input for students' records, and I want to insert all those records in a database in DB. This is the first application that we are going to work on right now, right? So what type of student records we want to enter? Let us say I want to enter enrollment number, I want to enter name, I want to enter semester, I want to enter email ID, I want to enter mobile number, I want to enter, say, I would date of birth, right? Moreover, I want to enter gender of a particular student. So these are the some of the fields that I want to enter in a database. And for this, I want to create a GUI in which a student is going to provide the details of all these. So let us start building the GUI for this thing. So just remember, we want to enter enrollment, name, semester, email, mobile, date of birth, and gender. So the GUI, we will start developing GUI first. So I'll take a label, press F4, and you will see a text property on the right hand side. You can change any text here. So let us say enter enrollment number. Right? See here, the text has been changed. Then I want to give a text box where they will add their text, that is the name or enrollment number they want to enter in a particular field, right? Similarly, I will just copy paste this two. I will align them as per my GUI requirement. I will change the text here. Let us say enter name. Again, I want to give to text box, so there is no requirement of changing this control. Then we want to enter a semester. So what I want is, while providing the input of semester, I want the students to select the semester from the predefined values I already entered. So for that, I'm going to take a combo box or a drop down in your terms, right? And in the combo box, I will provide all the values that I want a student to select while entering the value for this GUI. So I will click on this black arrow, click on edit items, and I will add all the values. Say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So maximum 8 semesters. So we are entering 1 to 8 values. Click on OK. Then we have a next, we want to enter email. So the same thing, again, we are going to provide a enrollment number, and here we'll change the text as enter email ID. And again, we are providing the text box for the same. Similarly, for mobile, we are again using the same, change the text. Right. So enter mobile. Then we have date of birth. So for date of birth, I'm going to use this date time picker. Right. So again, copy paste, and we delete this control and add a date time picker here. Again, change the text of this, say enter date of birth. Next that we want to enter is the gender. So for gender, I'm going to take radio buttons, as you know. So remove this, and let us say select gender. And for gender, we are mainly going to use the radio buttons. Say radio button 1, that is for male, and radio button 2, that is for female. Now, if you recall your HTML, what you want to do, or you have to do while putting radio buttons in your application, you need to add or you need to provide the group name, or you need to keep the name of both the radio buttons as same, so that you can select only one. But right now in this, we don't have to set any type of properties in this particular control. Yeah, one thing is there. Let us say I have one radio button group for gender, and if I have some other radio buttons for say currencies, then we need to group these radio buttons as per its requirement. And for that, we create or we use a group box control. Now, group box control, what it does, it creates a group of a particular control. Whatever controls you pasted in that particular group, that will be only accessed on this particular area. It will not be accessed outside this area. So that is the benefit of group box. Right now, we do not require group box because already we have only 2 radio buttons. So we will work as it is. Right? So I think we have got all the values: enrollment, name, semester, email, mobile, date of birth, and gender. So now what we will do, we'll come back to our design part, and now what we want to do is on a button click, we are going to enter all these values in a particular database. So this is the GUI that we already created. So this is the GUI. If I execute this GUI, let us see on executing this GUI, we are getting all our GUI where you can enter the values, where you can select the values, where you can enter the values, and you can select the date. You can select any of the radio buttons. Right now we have not kept any validations on any of these controls. For enrollment number, only number should be there. We have not kept. For name, it should be only alphabets. For email ID, only @ and dot and all these things. We have not put any type of validations right now on this particular GUI or application. Now, if I want to name this particular my form or application, let us say student registration form. So my form has been changed to student registration form. You can see the title here, right? So the task of GUI development has been done by us. Now what is left is, first we need to create a database for all these things, right? So for creating a database, what we will do, we'll go to Solution Explorer, right click on this application name and go to Add New Item. So you will get a list of items that you can add in your application. Now go to data on the left hand side. In this, you will only see all these items that are related to the database, like database unit test, ADO.NET data model, data set, local database, XML schema, right? In this, we are going to select service-based database. The database that is being supported by your .NET is MDF file, that is master database file. So we are going to select such database that is having an extension called MDF. So let us rename this database to webinar one database. Like click on add. It will take few seconds to add it to your database, to your application mainly. So let's wait while it is adding it to your application. Now, if you are using Visual Studio 10, you will get this option. For Visual Studio 15 and 19, you will not get this option. You will get directly your database added to your application. Now for Visual Studio 10, we are not going concerned with any of these things. So we'll click on cancel. So if you see Solution Explorer, you have two things in your database. One is MDF and one is log file. We are not concerned with the log file. We are only concerned with the MDF file. So minimize this. Now so the database has been added to your application. Now to use this database, what we will do, we will go to view, search for Server Explorer and click on it. So in this Server Explorer, you will find your database under data connection menu. Left click on this particular arrow. So you will see what type of different things that a database is supporting for you. You can create a stored procedures, you can create functions, you can create synonyms, diagrams, that is class diagrams, you can create some tables, views, etc. Okay, Right, you can see here. So we are concerned with the tables. So click on the tables. You will see no tables are created in your system application. So right click and go to add new table. So you can see this screen, everyone. Okay. So now for Visual Studio 2015, the screen will be quite different. You will get some code part on the below screen here also. But as I'm working in Visual Studio 10, you will only see this. You are not concerned with the code part. So start creating your database or table. So first column will be ID. That will be of type integer. And I'm not allowing it null. So, and I'm going to put this ID as a primary key. Let us say that every table of a database should contain a primary key. So I'm just keeping it as a primary key. We are not going to enter any values for this. So for that, I will go to the property part of this and move to identity specification property of this. You can see is identity column here. So double click on it. You will see yes and 1 as an option. So what does this option says? Identity increment means you want to increment this particular column value by 1. And identity seed means from where you want to start adding this particular value. So it will start from 1 and then it will increment it by 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6. Right? So we have set this property. We are not concerned with inserting the value for this particular column. We are mainly going to concern with the values of these particular columns only. So we are going to generate those columns first. So next column is enrollment. Maybe type is numeric 18,0 because let us say our enrollment number is of 10 to 12 digit. So integer will not be supporting this particular data type. So we are going to use numeric 18,0. So now what is the meaning of numeric 18,0? It states that the length of a number will be 18 and it does not contain any decimal points. So it is fine for us, right? So numeric 18,0. Then is name. It will be type of varchar, say varchar 50. Then we have a semester. Now because in our design, if you see in our design part, for this entry, we have taken 1 to 8 numbers. So we need to take here integer type. So integer. Then we have next as email. So email again will be of type varchar. Then we have a mobile. Again a type varchar because sometimes people used to enter plus 91 like bracket 91. So for a safe side, I'm using a varchar data type. Then we have a date of birth. So DOB column for date of birth. We are going to use varchar again here. Then we have a gender. So for gender again it is a varchar. So if you see, we have used integer for ID that is auto incremented and inserted automatically. For enrollment we have used numeric type. For name we have used varchar. For semester we have used integer. For email we have used varchar. Mobile again a varchar. Date of birth and gender again a varchar. Now for those who are working in Visual Studio 2015 and 19, what you need to do is you need to scroll down to your code part. In that the first line will be create a square bracket dbo.table. So in that you need to rename that table to whatever name you want to save this table, right? So instead of table, you need to just provide the name of the table that you want to enter in your this database. And for Visual Studio 10, we are just going to save this using Control S keys and you rename your table as student, say for example. Click on OK and your table has been saved as a dbo.student. So what we have done is we have just created the table of a student with these many columns where ID is a primary key and auto incremented value. We are not going to enter the values for this. right? Clear to? Okay, so moving on ahead. Okay, so moving on to back to your design part. So now to move on with the coding part. So double click on this submit button. So it will create one click button. It means that whenever this button has been clicked, we are going to submit some data from this particular form to the database. Right? So we are mainly going to work here. In .NET, to work with the database, we need to import two namespaces that is required while working with the database application. The first is using system dot data dot SQL. As we are using SQL Server or MS SQL, this namespace is required. Next namespace is using system dot data dot SQL client. So these two namespaces mainly provides all the support for database operations. Either we want to insert some data or update some data or delete some data. Right? So now moving on next. The first task whenever working with a database is to create a connection string. To create a connection string, we first create one string variable, string s equals to, because our connection string will be in a characters, it will be a string type. So now to get the connection string, what we will do, we'll go again back to the Server Explorer, go to webinar.mdf file, that is the database file. Either right click and go to properties or directly click F4. On the right hand side, you will see a property window. In that, you will have a connection string menu. Double click on it or paste your cursor here and control all the connection string. Copy it and paste between these two double quotes. So you see your connection string has been pasted here. Now the next thing what you need to do is remember that in a connection string, you will have only the first and the last double quotes here. In between any number of double quotes you find, you just need to remove it. So I'm removing all these double quotes that are in between this connection string. Again, I'm having here. So what is my point is your connection string should be in a red color. Remember this thing. Still, if you see there is some error in the connection string in the red color, it is saying unrecognized escape sequence. That means your particular software or .NET is not getting what you have written here. So just to make sure that .NET understand this particular string, what we will do, we will add the front side of the starting of your connection string. So now the error has been removed. So the first task of providing the connection string has been done. The next task is to start taking input from the user of all your controls. So to take input, what we will do is, first thing, we need to make sure and remember the name of all these controls. So to know the name of these controls, what we will do, we'll select this control, and on the right hand side in your property window, you can see a text box 1 is the name of this first text box. Similarly, if you see If I select this, it is text box 2. If I select this, it is combo box 1. If I select this, it is text box 3. If I select this, it is text box 4. If I select this, it is date time picker 1. If I select this, it is radio button 1. And for this, it is radio button 2. And as we know that for button already, the name is button 1. Right? So now we know that for enrollment number, we have text box 1. For name, we have text box 2. For semester, we have combo box 1. For email, we have text box 3. For mobile, we have text box 4. For date of birth, we have date time picker 1. And for gender, we have radio button 1 and radio button 2. Right? So we are going to use these controls to take the input. So first of all, what in a CodePad I will take is, I will create one public string for gender. Say public string gn equals to double quotes. And in the button click, I will start creating the taking input of say string enr equals to. Now we have stored our enrollment number in this text box 1. So to take input, we will write string enr equals to text box 1 dot text. Right? Similarly, for name, let us say name equals to text box 2 dot text. Next thing, we have a semester. So say string sem equals to say combo box 1 dot selected item dot to string. Then we have string email equals to text box 3 dot text. Then we have string mobile equals to text box 4 dot text. Then we have in our design date time picker. So string say dob equals to date time picker 1 dot value dot to string. Then we have a gender. So for gender, we are going to take if loop because either of the radio buttons are going to get selected by a particular user. So for that, I am going to use if loop. Let us say if radio button 1 dot checked. That means if radio button has been selected by the user, what you want to do? Equals to true. Then we will say gn equals to double quotes male because my radio button 1 is for male. Similarly, else if radio button 2 has been selected by the user, we will say gn equals to female. And if the user has not selected any radio button, we'll put else part. Let us say gn equals to no selection. So we have taken input for enrollment from the text box. We have stored in a string enr. We have taken input in text box 2 and stored in string nam. We have taken input of combo box and stored in string sem. We have taken input of email in this particular text box and stored in EML. We have taken input for mobile in text box 4 and stored it in mob variable. We have taken input for date in the date time picker value, right? And we have stored it in dob string, and we have stored the radio button inputs in this gn variable. So this is the first way you can use, or you can write a code, but this type of coding would not be beneficial. So I'm going to comment this particular code. mainly, right? But for this radio button, I'm keeping the coding as it is because we want to have a selection, and based on selection, we need to store the value. So I'm keeping this coding as it is. Now, as I want to start with the database, first what I need is a query. So I'm writing my query as string ins equals to. The query will be insert into my table name is student, and as I want to enter the values for all the particular columns in my table, I will directly write a values keyword and a round bracket. So this is the syntax of inserting a particular data in a database. So now here we are going to pass the values that have been fetched from the user in the GUI. Now to enter the values, what you need to remember is, first thing is the data types of each and every columns that you want to enter value for. Say for enrollment, we are numeric. For name, it is varchar. For semester, it is integer. For email, mobile, DOB, and gender, it is varchar. So remember that whenever we are entering any values for varchar type, we use single quotes. For numbers and numeric or integer values or float values, we never use single quotes for those values. So for only varchar and date type, we are going to use single quotes. So again, recalling, enrollment is number, name is varchar, semester is integer, and rest all are varchar. So again, in your code part, we are going to enter the values in the sequence of your table. So we'll keep this sequence open for our reference. So ID is auto incremented, so we are not concerned with entering this value. So we are going to start the sequence of enroll. Now enroll's type is numeric, so no single quotes, right? So I'm just putting a comma here. Then a name is a varchar type, so single quotes are required. Then we have semester, again an integer type, so no single quotes are required, put just a comma. Then for semester, sorry, for email, again varchar type, so single quotes. Again for mobile, it's a varchar, so single quotes. Then again DOB, again a varchar type, so single quotes. And last gender, again it's a varchar, so a single quotes. So right, as per the data type, we have put single quotes wherever it is required. Now to enter the values of this, for enrollment it is text box 1, for name it is text box 2, for semester it is combo box 1, for email it is text box 3, mobile it is text box 4, and DOB it is date time picker 1. So to put these values in this, what we'll use, we'll put double quotes. In between double quotes, we'll put 2 plus, and between these 2 plus, we are just going to enter the name of the control and its value. So it is text box 1 dot text. Then second is for name. So again, a double quotes in between the single quotes. In between double quotes, put 2 plus sign, and then in between this, the control name, that is text box 2 dot text. Again, the third one is for semester, and for semester we have used combo box. So it will be combo box, again a double quotes, plus plus, and combo box 1 dot selected item. Then next is email. So again a double quotes, plus plus, and text box 3 dot text. Then for mobile, again a double quotes, plus plus, text box 4 dot text. Then for date of birth, again a
આમાં કોડ નહીં હોય મારી બતાવો સ્ક્રીન તમે બોલી શકશો વિધાઉટ સ્ક્રીન તો તમારે કઈ ટોપિક બોલો તો ટોપિક બોલવા માંડો સિસ્ટમ સ્ટાર્ટ આર્ય ઈચ કી
બોલવું છે કે ગુજરાતી આસ્તા એક સ્ટાર્ટ Hello. Yes, students, wait for some few seconds. There is some technical error. Yes, students, we are back. So moving on where we stopped. So yes, this is your code file. We are writing the query here. As I said, for writing the query, we need to know the sequence of each and every column of your table. right? So this is the table and these are the columns. So again, as I said, for varchar we are using single quotes. For other than varchar numeric types, we are not going to use single quotes. And to enter the values, we are going to use double quotes and plus plus, and the ID with the property of your control. Textbox1.text, for name it is textbox2.text, for semester it is combo box. So combo box 1.selected item. Then for email, again a text box 3.text. For mobile, we have a text box 4.text. For date time, we have a date time picker dot value dot to string. And for gender, we already stored gender in GN. We are just passing a GN. So if you see the connection, your query has been generated. Insert into student values, and whatever values the student has provided in his GUI is going to get entered in this particular textbox controls and this particular query, right? So now the next task is to execute this query. Now to execute this query, what we require is, we will first require SQL connection class. So SQL connection class con equals to new SQL connection. And in this SQL connection parameter will be your connection string that we already stored in connection string S. So this particular class mainly connects your this query and this particular code with your database. The next task is to execute this query. So to execute this query, we are going to use SQL command class. SQL command cmd equals to new SQL command. Now this command class takes two arguments. The first argument will be your query. We have written our query in this particular string variable ins. So ins will be passed as a first parameter here. And the second parameter will be the object of the SQL connection, that is con. Right? So what we have done, we have written the query, we have passed all the values from the controls that you developed in the design part. Then we have created one connection class that takes connection string as an argument. We have created one command class that takes the query as well as the connection as an argument. Once this is done, we will now execute this query using try catch block. The reason why I am using this try catch block is will be discussed after some time. So in the try catch block, the first part is to open the connection. So we'll open the connection, connection.open, and again close this connection. And between these two things, we are going to actually execute this query, this ins query. And this ins query has been passed as an argument in command class. So we are going to use this object to execute this query. So the query will be executed as the object of the command class, that is cmd dot execute non-query. Execute non-query actually executes your insert, update, and delete query, right? So we have used cmd dot execute non-query. And in the catch part, I'm going to just close this connection. Now I come back to the point why I have used this try catch block. See what we are doing in the try part. We are trying in the try part. We have first opened the connection with our database. Then we have tried to execute the query has been passed in this command class. That is, we are trying to execute this query. And then we are closing this connection. Now say for example, in this query, there is some mistake done by you. Let us say you have not ended this quotes properly, or you have not used or written any particular part of a query in a proper way. What happens? It will go here once the connection has been established. Now this particular part contains some error. So what happens? Your connection to the database will be live continuously until unless the application has been stopped by the user. So to prevent the overload on your particular database, what we have done, we are trying to execute this query. If this particular query has some errors, it will directly move on to the catch part, and in catch part, the connection will be terminated automatically. So it will reduce the load from the database or the server where you hosted this application. So that is the better part and a safe side to use this particular option. Now here, after cmd.execute non-query, I'm just printing some message box so that, let us say, if our query has been executed properly, we will say success message. And if there is any error, what we will do, we will print a message box.show and we will say some error. Right? So again, just quickly repeating what we have done. We have established a connection string. We have imported two namespaces required by your .NET application. We have taken input for radio buttons, and then we have created one query of inserting a data using the columns of your table as well as the controls that you've used in your design. And then we created one SQL connection class in which we have passed a connection string. We have created a command class in which we have passed a query as well as the connection. Then in the try part, we have tried to open the connection. Then we tried to execute this query. If this query is executed, we print a box or a pop-up, a success message, and close this connection. If there is any error in executing this query, we pop up error message and we close the connection, right? So let us try to execute this particular application. So I execute this form. Let us try to enter some data, say enrollment number as 12345, name as Raj. Let me select some semester. Let us add some email ID. Let us enter some mobile number. As we have not put any particular validations, all the types of values depending on your data type is allowed here. Let us select any birth date. Let me select any radio button and click on submit. See, what we have got is a success message. That means this particular values has been inserted successfully in your table. That means this insert query has been successfully executed by your command class. Let us check whether our data has been inserted in our table or not. To check, again go to your database, click on your tables, right click on your table name and go to show table data. See, automatically, as we said, ID is primary key and auto incremented. The value 1 has been entered automatically. And whatever data we inserted using the GUI has been inserted in the database. Clear with this part, everyone? Right? Let us try to execute some more and enter new data. Let us say 54345, say Rajesh, semester maybe say 6. So email ID will be rr@rr.com. Say mobile number is 3232356. Let us say we select some date of earlier years or former years, like 2001 June, any date. Select female, click on submit, success message. Again, go to your this layout of your table. Click on this button. Those are using Visual Studio 10, and those who are using Visual Studio 2015, you need to right click on your table, show table data, and refresh your design or layout. Click on this, you will see ID2 has been generated with this particular data that we inserted now. Clear with this, everyone? Now, what happens is After entering this data in the database, these values are not getting cleared. So for that, what we will do, we'll again come back to the code part. After this query has been executed, what we will do is we will clear all the text box and all the controls. So text box 1.text equals to double quotes. Similarly, text box 2.text equals to double quotes. Text box 3.text equals to double quotes. Text box 4.text equals to double quotes, and combo box 1.text equals to double quotes. We are not concerned with the datetime picker and radio button. Let it be checked or unchecked. There is no issue with it. Let us execute again one more time. Let us say enrollment number 09. From name, let us say Pooja. Semester, let us say 4. Email ID, let us say top@gmail.com. Enter mobile number, anything irrelevant data right now, a date, and let us say a gender. Submit. We have got the success message. On clicking OK on this, it should clear all the data entered in your GUI. See, it has cleared all the data, right? And let us check our database. Refresh this. You will see the data inserted in this particular row. So automatically rows are generated here. Now, one more thing, if you want to create a row in this table only, you can still create by clicking on this cell. You won't be able to click those cells which are auto incremented in primary key. You can only enter data wherever you have not put a primary key or auto incremented values. Let us say I'm putting some values here. Say name is Man, semester is 8, email ID is something like this, mobile number is something like this, date is 23 June 2008, gender is male, and tab will automatically create a new row. So this is how we work with the database. So far what we have done is we have created one GUI. That GUI contains all the controls that is used to take input from the user. Once the input has been taken from the user, what we are doing, on a click of a button, we are inserting all these values in a database, and the database contains one table called student with these columns, and we have entered all these values respective and relevant with this particular columns, right? So today we have only learned inserting a particular value in a database using this GUI, right? So we are stopping this session today, and your next session will be of CS, that is cybersecurity, and that will be conducted by Snehal sir. In few seconds and few minutes, we are going to start this session. Thank you for the day. All the best. Right. To check the data, what you need to do is you go to your database in your Server Explorer. If it is Red Cross, just click on this arrow. So it will open all these options. In the tables, you will see your table. In that table, right click on your table, select show table data, and it will list all your data. I think it is clear. Yes, any other doubts, students? See, why I have done plus plus in the code part, that is the syntax of a .NET. that to embed all these particular controls in a particular string, so we need to use plus plus. That is the embed plus plus here. Yes, if you add multiple radio buttons in your particular system or application or GUI, it will only allow one radio button to select of all the radio buttons you put in your GUI. So if you want to use different radio buttons for a different task, you need to group them in one particular group. So you create multiple groups for multiple radio buttons based on your requirement. Okay, the insert query is as follows. I'll just copy paste. Yes, you can, as I've done here, you can see this. You can take all the values in a particular some variables first and pass these variables instead of this particular control. But you need to use plus plus. That is for sure. It is compulsory. Yes, for industry level, again, the flow is same. Parth, can you just write down a question properly? Why did we take private means? Yeah, this event has been generated automatically by your .NET software. So it will by default private, the scope will be to this particular application only. All these variables by default will be private, whatever you used in this particular scope. I wanted to use this particular variable in this particular query, so this private variable won't be accessed outside this. So I have used it in the public part. See, this is public class, so automatic this particular variables will be public. I am copy pasting this insert query again in a notepad just for your reference, as it won't be visible here. It's a very long. I'm breaking this from some part so that you can know how it is being written. I think it is visible to everyone. See, GN is a string, and whatever radio buttons we are selecting again contains a string value, that is male and female. What we want to actually store in a table is either a male or a female. So for that we use a string type. See, there may be hundreds of forms in your application. Yes, it is 100% sure. But what is there? We are able to write some codes in a different way that I will show you in the later part of our questions. Later part of our sessions, I will show you in the rest of the sessions, I will show you how you can write application level where you have multiple forms and you can use this query very shortcutly, in a shortcut way. So students, we are ending with this session as the next session, Snell sir is going to start. So thank you.
So, hello everybody. This side, Professor Snehal Satwara with Professor Kishan Makadia. Welcome you all in the series of online educations. And today we are going to learn unit number 5, that is cyber ethics and laws. So, as of now, we have completed unit number 1, basics of cyber crimes and cyber securities. Unit number 2, we have seen some CIA triads, cryptography level, right? Then we have further move ahead with some what are the cyber crimes. The unit number 3, 4 in the progression of we have done with cyber forensics also. And unit number 5 is cyber ethics and laws. So the thing is, why should we learn cyber ethics? Why should we learn cyber laws? So I'm having some questions. Let's brush up our knowledge. What is cyber crime? Would you please kindly quick response to the chat box? What is cyber crime? Hopefully I'm audible to you all. Kindly respond in the chat box so that I can understand you are with me. So yes. Okay, computer related crime, like Krunal said. So may I know some popular crime that you faced or we learned in our lecture? For example, phishing or web crime. Yes. Please just put your comment, some popular crime that you have faced or we learn in our regular lecture. So cyber crime or computer orientation crime is crime. Okay. I'm expecting your answer, not from the Google. Yeah. So you just put your answer here. I'll see your answer. Okay. So Bhargav Angan, you say DDoS. Okay. Then Rushil DDoS. Okay. I'm getting DDoS, more DDoS. Bhargav Angan. Okay. Exploiting. Okay. Jeet Adeshna, online crime, ransomware, right? Salami attack, cloning, smishing, phishing, wishing, spoofing. Okay. Juicing, yeah, jack juicing, right? Good. Then SQL injections, right? So number of, yeah, somebody said that Heli Parekh, child pornography, good. Okay. Crime associated with specific and network, okay, good. Right. So I'm getting number of response that I can say that you are with me. So let's move ahead with our PPT. Okay, so the first objective of cyber law is to protect against cyber crime. And as you all know, what are the cyber crime that happened in the world? In India also, we are facing number of crimes day by day in national level or state level. We are getting number of crimes, right? That we already discussed in our classroom. Okay, So today contents are introduction to cyber laws. Proceeding with e-commerce, we'll understand what is e-commerce, e-governance. We'll see what is certifying authority. That is very, very important thing. Certifying authority, to understand functions of certifying authorities and controllers, right? Offenses under IT Act, and that is also very important thing. So we'll learn these offenses under IT Act also, and IPR, intellectual property right in cyberspace, right? So let's move ahead with first topic, that is introduction to cyber laws. Yeah, before moving ahead with, do you know what is public key cryptography, private key cryptography? Can I say symmetric cryptography is a public key or private key? Give me answer. Why I'm asking this question? Because in digital signature, we need this public key and private key concept. So would you please let me know, can I say public key cryptography is symmetric or asymmetric? Yeah. So public key cryptography, I'm getting some answer. Private is asymmetric. Okay. Private key is a symmetric. Yeah. So I'm getting mix of answer responses from you guys. But let me clarify, what is public key cryptography? Can I say symmetric cryptography as a public key or private key? Okay, symmetric key cryptography is using only single key, right? If receiver want to receive some message, then it needs to be encrypted from the sender side with the one single key, that is symmetric key, right? So I can say symmetric key cryptography, that is a private key cryptography. Because why private key? Because only sender and receiver can understand that key. Okay, but in the case of asymmetric cryptography, we are using two keys, right? One is public, one is private. So I can say asymmetric key cryptography, that is also known as a public key cryptography, right? So some has given a right answer. I repeat, symmetric key is a private key cryptography, asymmetric key is a public key cryptography. Okay, so let's begin with introduction to cyber law. The rules and regulations that govern the transactions carried out with the use of computers and internet and curb cyber crime. So here we are dealing with digital scenarios. Whatever crime scenes that happen through the digital medium, we can say that digital signature by using e-lockers. Okay, so any transactions that happen through digital, where we are using computers, smartphones, desktops, or any other digital devices, that comes under cyber law. And for India, cyber law is defined under IT Act 2000, right? Cyber law is defined under IT Act 2000, and there are a number of chapters I already discussed with you. And here in the last page of this PPT, here in the last page of PPT, we have put some resources, right? So from there, you can directly download those ITech 2000 papers. I can say 9th June 2000, IT Act, Cyber Law IT Act 2000 has introduced the Indian publicly, right? So cyber law is the law relating to computers, communications, and internet, where we are using any digital devices where all digital devices we can connect with the internet, and any communications if you are doing through the digital devices, and if any mischievous happen due to this all computers, communications and internet, where we will put under cyber law. It is also known as the Information and Communication Technology Law. We can shortly say that ICT law. So I can say, I can summarize this introduction as IT Act 2000 is an Indian cyber law, and which is used to protect against cyber crime which happen through computers or any digital devices, communications and internet. And this is also known as the ICT law. Cyber law covers electronic commerce, and that is what in next couple of slides we will see what is e-commerce, what is e-governance, what is IPR in cyberspace, what are the cyber crimes, right? So cyber law covers e-commerce, electronic governance, intellectual property in cyberspace, cyber crimes, telecommunications that happen analog through analog medium or digital medium, data protections and privacy, etc. Right? So students, I will take some questions in last couple of minutes, maybe in last 10 minutes. So you just put and raise your doubts in your chat box. I'll cover all the questions as possible in last couple of minutes, right? Okay, so we'll see some definitions. And before, let me show you some documents of IT Act, which is government documents. So here I opened one website. The link is I already shared in this PPT in last page. That is Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, MeitY. We are saying that as a MeitY, Government of Indian websites. And here you can see information technology. Follow my cursor. Follow my cursor. Information Technology Act 2000. If you click here, you can see view the IT Act 2000, download the IT Act 2000 in the PDF format, 243.6 KB file. Some rules for Information Technology Act. Yeah. So here, who are the certifying authorities, who design controller, who is controller, certifying authority, that we will see in couple of next slides. But here you can see number of things you can get in touch within IT 2000 from the MeitY website. So download the IT 2000 latest updated PDF file. So I already opened that PDF file here. Wait. Yeah, and that is known as Bharat Ka Rajpatra, the Gazette of India. And this is an authorized paper, we can say that is authorized documentation for the IT Act 2000. And here you can see number of sections. IT Act 2000 is divided into sections, and each section is having maybe number of subsections also, right? So Ministry of Law, Justice and Company Affairs, they have designed they in a number of chapters, right? So here you can see chapter 1, that is preliminary chapter, chapter hello, yeah, am I audible? Am I audible? Right. So yeah, so Most important thing that I'm going to cover under IT Act 2000, that is definitions under section 2 in chapter number 1. Now onwards we will say that under IT Act 2000, Gazette of India, Bharat Ka Rajpatra, based on that document under chapter number 1, there is section number 1. We will focus on section number 2, that is definitions. Here you can see all the definitions of digital medium, right? You can say what is access, you can see what is addressee, what is adjudicating. Yeah, that is a term of law. Hello. Yeah, I hope now I am audible. Okay. So here you can see definitions of computer. So number of definitions they have defined. So while arguing in court in the lawsuits, you should refer these all definitions. What is computer system? So we can say that in the section number 2 under IT Act 2000, right? There is a section 2. Let's say I want to refer computer. So section 2I, that is computer, right? So let's say the important, let's refer some important terminology under section number 2T. Under section number 2T of IT Act 2000, we will see electronic record. Okay, so first we will refer what is electronic record, and then we will move ahead with e-governance and e-commerce. So what is electronic records? So under IT Act 2000 section 2T, electronic record is defined as data, record, data generated, image or sound stored, received or sent in an electronic form, or microfilm, or computer generated microfiche, right? So now let me know what left actually. They have defined everything. See, data generated from the digital devices, images, whether you capture from your smartphones or any other devices or smartwatches, sound stored. I mean, you are storing your voice here. Okay, received or sent in electronic form, or microfilm, right? I mean, you are recording in the form of microfilm or electronic form. That comes under IT Act 2000 section 2T, that defines electronic record, right? So let's move ahead with PPT. Yeah. Okay. So as I said, electronic record is defined under section 2T of IT Act 2000, that you can refer in my PPT. Yeah. What is digital signature? Very important terminology. See, student, IT Act 2000 Bharat Ka Rajpatra is a very big document. But yes, thank God, the IT Act still it is very in the concise format. Okay, so you can refer in a couple of weeks or 1 month. But I have prepared this PPT, which is very important thing here, right? So digital signature. A digital signature is the method of authentication of the electronic record, right? So that is a authentications of your electronic record by the use of asymmetric crypto, and that is what I asked one question: what is asymmetric cryptography? So now you can understand. In the case of asymmetric cryptography, we will use public key plus private key, right? And in that is a totally public encryption methodologies. So in the form of asymmetric cryptography, we will prepare digital signature here, right? So ITAC 2000 also defined how to prepare digital signatures, how to forward digital signatures, how to deal with digital signatures, right? So with the help of hash functions, by which it is possible to secure electronic information in such a way that the originator of the information as well as the integrity of the information can be verified. That is digital signatures, and I put reference under ITAC 2000. You just refer chapter number 2, section 3. In section 3, there is a definition of digital signature and how to deal with digital signature they have defined, right? So student, I'll let you know, I want to share something. Digital signature is used nowadays in a very huge amount in the world, right? So where we are using asymmetric cryptography with the help of some hash functions, so that we can confirm our integrity. So here, that is a case of CIA triad. Okay, in CIA triad, we discussed what is confidentiality, what is integrity, what is availability. So here one word is integrity, right? Here one word is integrity. Okay. So what is integrity? Quickly respond in chat box. What is integrity based on CIA triad? What is integrity, guys, student? What is integrity? I hope you are with me. If you are with me, kindly respond quickly. What is integrity? Sankey. I'm not getting. Yeah, yeah. I asked what is integrity based on CIA triad. Just take 30 seconds, quickly respond in the chat box so that I can understand what is integrity based on CIA triad fast in at one sentence. Yeah, so Meet Lahru is trustworthiness of data is called integrity. Okay, okay. Anybody? Guys, don't get bored because this is kind of theoretical portion, but very important thing in terms of cybersecurity, right? You will get definitely some interesting topics in couple of slides. Okay, just I got response from the Meet Lahru. Okay, and yeah, you are right, Meet. Okay, so please get connected with me. I'll ask some more questions. Right, so let's move ahead. E-governance. Yeah, what is e-governance? In the short form, we understand electronic e-governance is a short of electronic governance, and e-governance is a direct interface, public to I mean we can say citizens, Indian citizens to our government. So to facilitate exchange of information in the electronic form between government, citizen interface. So government will create some interface between government and citizen, government to government, government to some businesses also, corporate world, government to employee, government society also, right? So you can refer this in chapter 3, section 4 to 10, right? Guys, quickly respond me. Do you know what are the e-governance websites or projects that are existing in India? Kindly quickly respond in chat box. Yeah. What are e-governance under IT Act 2000? I mean, sorry, what are the example of e-governance? Do you know any projects that currently running in India? E-governance project? Yeah. No, I'm not getting any response. So this is the example, the current e-governance initiatives in India, right? So India Image, Government of India portal, you can see some agriculture websites also, maybe some space centers also, we can say government to government e-governance, right? So here you can see the examples or current projects of e-governance. Okay. So if you find any queries, you just post your questions in chat box. I'll go ahead with some more slides. Right. So there is some difference between conventional governance and e-governance, right? So what is conventional governance? A traditional governance, we can say. So here I put some parameters. In the nature, the conventional governance is a kind of declaratives, and based on, we can say, if we introduce e-governance in our daily routine or work, based on government rules and regulations, that is a transparent. You can find transparency if you apply e-governance. So yeah, obviously you find DZ Locker over there, right? Beam applications over there. So no extra charges or no hidden charges in any transactions, right? Power structures, conventional governance, that is hierarchical, and e-governance, that is horizontal and networked, right? So in e-governance, everything is networked and in the form of horizontal. So escalations of any issues would be very easy. But in the form of hierarchical, if you find any queries, if you escalate, then it will take time. Maybe they may ask, okay, we will forward your query to our head, then again head will forward your query to the government, and maybe it will take time. Okay. So response passive and slow, as I said, due to hierarchical, and here passive and slow, and here proactive and quick response. So if you find any queries, you just post queries over there, you can find quick response over there, right? Communications, that is only one way. You should write some, you should go for a portal, you just put your queries over there. But in e-governance, directly you can communicate between a government also. So the best example, in PMO websites, they have put a facility, you can raise some queries, you can put your suggestions also. So e-governance, based on e-governance, you always you are invited to put your suggestions and all, and quickly they may give feedback. Yeah. So, and emphasize, we can consider as a compliance, and here achieving targets, they always put themselves to achieve their targets. If you raise, if they find 100 queries in a one day, they try to achieve as soon as possible. So that is the beauty of e-governance, right? So now you hope you are clear with e-governance. Okay. One more thing is definitions, that is e-commerce. So we already discussed e-governance. Now what is e-commerce? Yeah, one common thing is e. between two words, that is e-commerce and e-governance. E-commerce is nothing but all about businesses in terms of corporate worlds, right? So there is something called WTO. Not a something, that is a very popular thing. World Trade Organizations. They have defined e-commerce like the productions, distributions, marketing, sales or delivery of goods and services by electronic means. It means if you are using these all stuffs in the form of electronic media, let's say, we can say best example, Flipkarts, Amazon, they are e-commerce websites, right? But e-commerce definitions, they have defined, WTO has defined e-commerce definitions. The 6 main instruments of e-commerce that have been recognized by WTO are telephone, fax, TV, electronic payment, and money transfer system, electronic data interchange, EDI, and internet. So almost all medium, all physical medium, all digital mediums that we are using for the productions, distributions, or selling purpose, that is the best example of that defines e-commerce, right? So here, very good thing that I can say, types of e-commerce models. B2B, as you all know, business to business communications. And here in the matrix, you can see B2B example. I put vendom.niit.com. If you click over here, I'll forward these slides. This is best example of B2B business. And B2C means India Times. So business to consumer, they are targeting. Consumer to business, Make My Trip. Obviously, we as a consumer, we are finding such kind of hotels, or we are booking some airfares also. I mean, the traveling medium, right? So that is a consumer to business. And we can say C2C, ebay.in, or and nowadays we can say Ola also. Sorry, not Ola, OLX. Yeah, that is a C2C. You put your picture over there, you sell your product, somebody will buy your product. So that is a medium of C2C in the form of e-commerce model. So hope you are clear with e-commerce. Now, very important thing that is controller. To understand controller and certifying authority, you may ask one question, sir, who are controllers and who will define this digital signatures? How we can use this digital signature? Here you can get clear idea. Now, I put just focus on this red line: controller, certifying authority CA, and subscriber. 3 term. I repeat: controller, second one is certifying authority, and third one is subscriber. And let's assume one pyramid, and in one in top of the pyramid there is a controller, right? So controller has having all the power, and they are nothing but a government body, right? So controller will define who will be the certifying authority. Okay, so we will see who is certifying authority and what are the functions of certifying authority. But yes, let's see the functions of controller. Controller will define certifying authority, which we will see in next slide. They will supervise certifying authorities and subscriber also. So first point is supervision. Second is certifying public keys. Then laying down duties of they may they may allot some duties to certifying authorities, and they may supervise the work of certifying authorities and subscriber. So very important thing, refer page number 13 in the Bharat Ka Rajpatra. I shared documents also. and here where you can find duties in terms of sections, right? In terms of sections. And here I put some concise thing of functions of controller. We will see certifying authority, very important uh, entity of e-governance, right? So certifying authority. Who is certifying authority? Actually, they will work under controller. So controller, as we all know, central government. Let's say central government is a government body. They are controller. They will design certifying authority, and certifying authority is having some task. What kind of task? Electronic signature designing. They will design electronic signature certificate, identifies and authenticates the subscriber. Who are the subscriber? Establishes a relationship of trust between the subscriber and the third party. I know this is quite difficult to understand functions of certifying authority, but let me give one example. The example is the next is some licensed CAs, okay, certifying authorities. And here maybe you know NSDL, right? You know NSDL. Follow my cursor. There is NSDL, right? Through NSDL, you are applying for PAN card, or maybe right now they are you can apply for the Aadhaar card also. Now you acting as a subscriber, NSDL will be acting as a certifying authority. And who will define this NSDL? Controller. So again, assume one pyramid. In the top of pyramid, controller will be there, and second, certifying authority. And one example is NSDL. Through NSDL, you can create your PAN card, Aadhaar card, or any any government related documents you can create. Some more example you can see CDEC. You are most aware with Indian Army is also the CA certifying authorities, because under Indian Army we can say all frequencies are allotted. If you want to take any frequency, let's take one example. If Radio Mirchi wants to take one frequency, they have to take license from the Indian Army for the particular reason, right? So here you can see, and these resources are from the cca.gov.in, right? Okay, so hopefully you understood what is a controller, what is a certifying authorities. Next is we all are, right? Subscriber. So in the bottom of pyramid, we are acting as a subscriber, right? So the duties of subscriber is mentioned in the ITX section 40, 40A, 41, 42. It is nothing but just how to apply, how you will get digital signatures. So this sections is already discussed in our classroom. So you just refer this document here. If you find any queries, you just drop a mail. You just contact with me or Professor Kishan Makaria, sir. Right? So yeah. So I repeat again. Please keep in mind controller. Okay, let me go for that document itself so that you can get clear idea. Bharat Ka Rajpatra. And in chapter number 3, they have defined electronic governance. Right. Okay. Chapter number 4, how to secure these digital signatures and all. And here in chapter number 6, regulations of certifying authority. So who will have, who are controller, who are the officers that you can see under section number 70, Now, the very important thing, under section number 18, section 18 of ITAC 2000, you can find functions of controller. That is nothing but our government of India, central government. So as I discussed, they will supervise, they will create public key, they will define certifying authority. Okay, they may contact with subscribers also. So all things you can find from this section number 18, subsection, I mean section number 18, A2N. Yeah, so that is the functions of in your exam, in 8 marks, maybe there may we might ask one questions, functions of controller, so you can write any 8 points of functions of controllers, right? So very important questions. Again, recognizing of foreign certifying authorities, controller. Yeah, so certifying authorities also you can see rejections and all. Don't focus some more, don't go in depth, but functions of controller, very important thing, right? So hopefully you can see my document. Yeah. Now here in section 30, certifying authority to follow certain procedure. So if you want to be a certifying authority, you should follow under section 30, you should follow ABCD. Right? You should follow ABCD. Then you can be a certifying authority. Repeat, you can be a certifying authority also, right? But you should be in section numbers 30. You should follow ABCD, right? So that you can follow. Okay, certifying authority, right? Okay, so here you can see certifying authority also, and we will see. Wait, duties of subscriber. I repeat, very important questions. What are the duties of subscriber? That is defined under section 40, 41, 42, right? So if you are a subscriber, let's assume again we are at the bottom of pyramid. Subscriber is the bottom of pyramid, is in the bottom of pyramid. So generating keypads, acceptance of digital signature certificate, maybe you just do one practical, you just download your e-Aadhaar card from the internet, right? So if you download your Aadhaar card, e-Aadhaar card from the internet, they might ask, not might ask, they definitely ask for the e-signature confirmations. So that procedure, whatever that procedure you will do, that comes under section 41, acceptance of digital signature certification, right? So what kind of thing that you have to accept, it will come under. So do one practical, you just download your own e-Aadhaar card from the internet and accept digital signature from the internet, and you just observe what are the things that going on that you have to do as a subscriber, right? But before that you just refer section 41, right, under chapter 8. All right, so hopefully you understood what are who are controllers, who are certifying authorities, and who are subscriber. I repeat, very important thing, very important entities in terms of ITAC 2000, right? So yeah, okay. So okay, so here I'm concluding my session for the day, but before concluding, I'll ask some question to you. Quickly respond back in chat box, and the question in front of you in your screen. Fill in the blanks. Has the power to appoint controller, right? You are having 30 seconds. Yeah. So Yeah. So I repeat. Yes, Bhargav Angan is saying that central government. Yes. Forum, also central government. Goswami, Mohit Giri, central government. That is true. Very good. The right answer is central government, and I can understand you are with me. Good, good. Yeah, central government is the right answer. All right, let's move ahead with the next question. Avi Gunchala A, central government. Right, okay, central government. Okay, next question. Electronic record is defined under section of the IT Act 2000. Quickly respond. Okay, 30. Yeah, electronic record is defined under section of the IT Act 2000. Okay. Yeah. Okay, and I'm getting answer. Bhargav Angan is actively participated in this 1 hour session. That is, yeah. I'll declare answer after some time. Yeah, you just give me, you just reply with your answer. Yes, Vaishwari Patel, Tumin Sheth. Where is the chat box? Tumin, just try the below in your that right side. You will find one box, and in below you can find chat box also. Hopefully, maybe you are the right person. You can find definitely in some minute. Yeah, Harsavani. Harsavani is giving answer. Jinesh Tilia, Disha Dauda, Anjali Kumari, Nishant Bhatt, Ali Parekh. If you are using mobile phone, there is a symbol of question mark where you can type your answer. Okay, that is nothing but a chat box. If you are using your web interface, then see that right box. Right hand side you can find box. Mehul Desai is giving answer. Kiran C. Parmar, Nemish Shade is there. The correct answer is the option C, 2T. Section 2T under IT Act 2000, which define electronic record, right? And I am getting number of right answer. Yeah, number of. But who are sending answer as a 2F? Kindly refer that documents. Kindly refer that documents. Bharat Ka Rajpat. Okay. Next question. IT Act 2000 focuses on maintenance of electronic records. True or false? Getting answer from the Krunal, Harsh, Mit Desai, Mansi. Yeah, number of participation is there. Forum, Nemish. You mean? Please answer so that I can understand you found your, where is? You found your chat box. Disha Dauda, Mehul Desai, Anjali Kumari. Yeah, Mehul Desai. Okay. Then Tumin Sheikh, yes, still suggesting with, struggling with it. Tumin, you are not that guy. Don't put your struggle over there. That is very easy interface. If you are using your website, go to right, check in the right side, you will find one box. Below the box, you can find chat box. If you are using mobile interface, you can find question mark symbol over there, right? Okay, so question was ITAC 2000 focuses on maintenance of electronic record. The answer is option A, true, right? Yeah, so number of answers are correct. Very good, guys. Good, good. Next question. The main functions of the controller are as follow. There are 4 options. Quickly go through these options and let me know. Oh, come on. Okay, Bhargav, will take care, don't worry. Yeah, the question, the main function of the controller are as follow. Give me the right answer. Okay, Goswami Mohit Giri, D. Okay, I understand this is the lunch time. All of them. Oh, yes. Okay. Okay. Right. So, yeah. Savani, Krunal Vasoya, Tumin Sheth. Yeah, good, Tumin. Now you found it. Yeah, you got it. Bansi is there. Good. Okay. Yeah, most of I'm getting good answer. Correct answer. The right answer is all of the above. Option D. Yeah, supervision, certifying public keys, and applying orders to the certifying authorities, controlling subscribers also. Very good. Good. Okay. Next question is the electronic signature certificate continues to have validity even after the date of the subscriber? Huh? Date of the subscriber? Yes. Yes. Yeah, good. Good. Okay, Tumin set B. The electronic signature certificate continues to have validity even after the date of the subscriber. Obviously, after date of subscriber, what is the need of? Okay, Hiral Mashru, false. Now I can see Hiral also. Yeah, Harsh. Okay, Samantha, we inshallah B. Bansi B. Mehul Desai, yes, good. Mehul Desai is there. Yeah. The right answer is false. B, option B, right? Okay, option B is the right answer. ITAC 2000 describes the function, duties, and power of the controller. Last, yeah. ITAC 2000 describes the functions, duties, and power of the controller. True. So this is, yeah. So the right answer is option A, true. Good. Yeah. So here I'm concluding my session. If you are having any questions, let me know. Yeah. If you are having any questions, let me know. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye. Yeah. Okay. No. Okay. If you are having any question, please post in chat box. Please post in chat box. Hey Bhagwan. No, no, no. Let me. Thank you, sir. Okay. So if you are having suggestions or feedback, and after post these sessions, if you are having any questions, drop a mail to me or Kishan Makadia, sir. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much.